Hi, good evening, Malaysia and followers from around the globe. Tonight, we welcome Miss Koh Mei Lee, the CEO of Golden Screen Cinemas, GSC as we love to call it. It is the leading cinema exhibitor of 370 screens at 38 locations in Malaysia. So it's number one, as well as 96 screens in 11 locations in Vietnam. So Miss Koh has been the CEO since 2002, and that's really long. That means that she's really good in her job, and that she's also the head of corporate affairs in the PBB group, which is also a very diverse group. Now, Miss Koh, welcome on board tonight. We're going to ask you about what's happening on the cinema screens. Tell us about it.
Good evening, Chunwai.
Yes.
Lovely to see you. And I like your T-shirt.
Okay.
Good
Now,
choice.
before
Look
we
at that.
before we proceed, she has conspired, she has plotted and forced me to wear this t-shirt, but there's a story to it. We'll come to that later. Okay, sorry, Miss.
Yeah, well, Chunwai, I wish I had good news for you, but unfortunately, the cinema industry globally is in major distress, and Malaysia is no different, really. I think for this year, GSC will have the most difficult and challenging year in its 33-year of history. You know,
Yeah.
as you know, the cinemas, we were shuttered for almost 4 months, and just only in July we were allowed to open. And before we can get off the ground, now you have a third wave of the pandemic, and cinemas in Sabah and in Klang Valley have to close, which essentially means that about half of our theaters are shuttered again, you know. So when we reopened in July, right, we found that we had a different and unique dilemma with the cinema industry, you know. Most of the majors have postponed their blockbuster movies to 2021. For example, you know, you were looking forward to No Time to Die, James Bond, which was originally slated for April, and then it moved to November, and then now it is moved to April 2021.
Oh, that's a long time.
So basically, a lot of movies, Black Widow, Kong versus Godzilla, Top Gun, what else? Your Mobius, all have been moved to 2021. Not only the Hollywood blockbusters have moved their titles, but even our local movies, like the big ones, right? Police Evo 3,
Okay.
we have Abang Long Fat Lil 3 and J Revolusi. These are also moved to 2021. So we are really faced with a situation where we have no content to play. You know, it's like going to a grocer and you have no food to sell, right? So we've had to improvise and come up with ideas on how we can utilize our cinema during this time. But so without a consistent supply of movies, right? We've had to rely on some independent titles, and fortunately, we can tap into our GSC movies, which had some animes, BTS, which is the documentary concerts, and some movies regionally from China, from Korea and Japan, like we had The Peninsula, which is a Korean zombie movie. So luckily we had some of these fillers, but it's not enough to attract the audience to come back to the cinemas. And it's very sad because the retail industry has actually improved by 50 to 80% since the doors are open again. But for us, you know, we are only about in the third quarter achieving 12% of what we did in 2019. So it's a very difficult situation for us.
Yes, you know that things has happened so fast. When we planned this interview, we were talking of how things have moved on, and that we we're hoping to watch the James Bond movie and the Jackie Chan's movie. And I actually named this interview moving on, okay, to play with the word. But now we are back to square one. Now, does that mean that most of the movies, including Jackie Chan's Vanguard, and the James Bond movie is almost likely to be in August if nothing happens. It's all targeted in April next year. Why April specifically?
Next year actually is going to be a very jam-packed year for all the blockbusters because most of them have been moved to 2021. Vanguard, we actually played it on the end of September, but because it was released in China, and as you know, China, they have the pandemic very well under control, and the cinemas are recovering back to pre-COVID levels. So when they released it there, we released it in Malaysia as well. But unfortunately, you know what happened? We went through the third wave, so we've had to close the cinema. So Vanguard is it's our title, and it's very sad. And our box office will not be what we expected it to be.
So is the movie being screened in China now?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And China is doing so well during that long holiday weekend, right? They have had like titles, their top movie, and the second top movie is like 400 million US dollar. They could achieve more than 400 million US dollar. So I believe China and the rest of the world where the pandemic is under control, that moviegoers will return to the cinemas. It is something that you want to do because you have been locked at home for so long, right? And you want to get out, and movies is one of the best form of entertainment to relax and to chill, really.
What about your cinemas in Vietnam? I mean, Vietnam has controlled very well. Are you able to screen your movies in Vietnam?
Yeah, Vietnam, they are doing slightly better than us because they were only closed for less than a month, and closure was only in pockets, where they had a pandemic, then they closed it, and they have local content, yeah, to support the industry. They also, and in the same situation in terms of Hollywood blockbusters, they are also, not having those content, but at least they have local content. So whilst we've dropped about more than 80% their box office dropped only about 60%. So they're slightly better off than us.
Okay, I'm trying to understand the situation right now in Malaysia. Are you open for business, or do you still have to are you still allowed to screen at certain time or with under certain conditions? What's the exact status?
Okay, we were allowed to open in July during the RMCO, but with very stringent SOPs in place. We have to have social distancing markers. Everybody is supposed to wear a mask, and there is gap seating as well. So every seat in between, even if you're going as a couple or family, it's empty. Yeah, it has to be empty. But I think this is some of the measures that we have to take in order for us to open and to get people to be comfortable going back to the cinemas, right? On that note, right, there's a lot of reservation about going to a cinema which is a confined space for a long duration of time, right? But there has been a research done in Korea. Some of these countries have never shut down with the pandemic. Only pockets have been, like Korea, Taiwan, Sweden, Japan. They didn't close the entire cinema. And there has, I have to say that not a single outbreak has been traced to any type of cinema. And during the pandemic up to date, there's more than 100 million admissions at the cinemas, but there is no cinema cluster, right? So I think the cinema, with all the SOPs in place, right, is one of the safest place in a confined area that you can enjoy your entertainment.
So basically, during that situation, the couple have got to be separated. You cannot have someone sitting next to you, and definitely the couple seat, or I call it the lover seat, is a no-go. and you must wear a mask in the cinema.
You have to wear a mask in the cinema if you are not eating or drinking. Yeah, you have to have it on all the time. And you're right, even the couple seating and families, they cannot sit together, right? Despite the fact that, you know, movie going is largely a very social activity. And most of our audiences comprised of families and friends, right? And they may be journeying to the cinema together, but when they reach the cinema, they have to sit apart. So it's not your ideal cinema going experience, but during this time, I think it's something that we have to adjust to. Yeah. And having said that, when we reopened in July, we were very encouraged. We found a lot of customers coming back to the cinemas. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of pent-up demand to get out, right? And there's nothing that you can't compare streaming your movies in the house or on your gadgets to the entertainment and the movie experience that you get on the big screen.
I agree, because when you're in a cinema, you are completely focused, you are completely shut down, and that you're not talking to anyone. If you're in a home or anywhere, they're likely to be mostly, there'll be in distraction, you know, people coming to say hello to you or call you, you know, that it's different. I know it's like, but coming back to this SOPs in your cinemas, do you strictly enforce it? Did anybody from the health ministry or the enforcement agencies like walk in to have a surprise check, spot check kind of thing when the screenings were done? Was there any such thing?
Yes. You know, we had many visits when we reopened the cinemas to make sure that we are following the SOPs, right? So we have to, I'm not sure if you know this, but one of the SOP, not only wearing masks, right, and sitting apart, but after every screening of a movie, we have to totally sanitize the hall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they do check that we do that. And they do check that whether we enforce the SOPs very strictly or not.
So what did they do? They came in the dark, you know?
They come to the cinema and they visit and they stay and they see, they observe and see whether or not there is social distancing when we are queuing for the tickets at the kiosk, to see whether everybody is wearing a mask, to see whether or not there are sanitizers. You know, there's a checklist that they go through whether or not you are giving them sanitizers at convenient spaces for guests to sanitize their hands, to see whether we sanitize after every screening. They stay back and they look at that. So very thorough, actually.
So did they came in discreetly for a while, they leave, or they sat down and watched the entire movie the rest of the day?
I'm not so sure about that, but I do know they do the checks. I don't think they stayed for the entire movie.
Okay, I'm trying to understand again now. So the current status at least today is that the cinemas are still open or completely shut down?
Okay, currently, because of the third wave of the pandemic, right? Cinemas in Sabah and in KL and PJ, basically the Klang Valley, all those will have to close. So we've closed since the CMCO, right? And we are to close for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And it's very likely that if the CMCO is extended, then this extension will also apply to the cinemas.
Okay.
Right.
So
regardless, I mean, that's regardless of the fact that really we are in an enclosed area, but we are seated apart and we have masks and all that. But look at the transportation, right? It's open. You have full capacity. Gyms are open. Parks are open. All the leisure activities are open, and I don't understand why the cinemas are not allowed to open like I just did. There's no cluster globally, you know, that has actually arisen from the cinemas.
You can go to Pasar Malam, no problem. Can rub shoulders.
Exactly. And here you are really you duduk by yourself, right? Quiet, watching a movie with a mask on, and there's a space in between.
Okay.
So yeah, we are trying our best. We are appealing.
Mainly out of your 38 locations in Malaysia, so how many are in Klang Valley? Basically, KL and Selangor, your bulk of
Yeah,
your revenue earning spot.
it's 40%
Wow,
of
okay.
our cinemas are here because this is the most populous area, right? And
Yep.
also the visits to the cinema is the highest in the Klang Valley compared to the whole nationwide.
So how is the GSC cinemas doing in Penang and JB right now? Because they are spared from these conditions of shutting down.
Yeah, they are also, I'm afraid, not doing well for the reason I said earlier. We don't have any content
Okay.
to play, the big contents. Right now, they are just playing Vanguard and a few independent titles, which is not enough to
Okay.
draw the crowd to the cinemas. You know, right now, for the third quarter, I mean, now we are going in the fourth quarter, right? We have no blockbusters except for Wonder Woman and Soul that is supposed to be on Christmas Day, 25th December. And assuming that these titles will not be postponed again, right? I think for us to recover, we need a steady slate of movies to come on.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen unless the US get their act together. Basically, they have to control the pandemic that's happening in the US because the US and North America is the largest market for the studios, right? And there are major cities like New York City, LA, they are not open, right? So if they're not open, studios don't want to release.
Yeah.
And if you know, Regal, which is the second largest cinema chain in the US, they've closed their cinemas, right? And AMC said that, you know, they're going to run out of money by end of this year, right? It's a chicken and egg situation.
Yes.
They have to close because they have no titles, and because the cinemas are closed, studios are not releasing titles.
Yeah. Okay. Besides GSC, there are two other cinema exhibitors in Malaysia. Okay, everybody's in the same boat, I presume. It's a question of how strong one can stay. Obviously, that GSC, being a subsidiary of a very big group, PBB, is able to withstand some of the financial constraints. Now, as part of your mitigation, what do you call it, action, what has your, as a CEO, what have you carried out to ensure that the financial situation remains stable, given the loss of revenue, which is beyond your control? Okay, how do you, as a CEO, make sure that your GSC is cruising steadily despite the difficulties? What have you been doing?
Right. I think it's very important during this crisis that we enter the crisis in a very strong financial position.
Yeah.
Right. And we are very fortunate that we have raised enough liquidity to tie us to until end of this year and probably up to middle of next year, if need be end of the year, when we hope that things will recover and we probably will have a vaccine by then, right? Like you mentioned, it is also an advantage to be with a large group, right, where you have commitment and support from your shareholders, because this is very important for us to be able to go out and raise funds, because the banks will only lend to you if you are supported by your shareholders, right? So I think we are lucky and fortunate in that sense. So I think for now, there's nothing much, like you say, we have no content to play. So the main thing is we have to conserve our cash and really manage our liquidity to the best that we can. So like a lot of other businesses where the business has been affected, right? One of the key things is to consolidate and to make sure that we cut our spending, yeah, conserve our cash flow. And we've done that by, the first thing is we have had to cut all the non-essential spending. we've had to delay and postpone our refurbishments and renovations and even opening of new cinemas to 2021, if not even later than 2021, right? We've had to, one of our major costs is, of course, rental from the landlords. So we are ongoing negotiations with the landlord to give us a waiver during the period that we are closed and give us rental rebates to cut our costs. We've also furlough our contract workers, and we are better managing or try to have more efficient manpower management, right? So these are some of the things that we've done. And I think on top of that, not just with cost cutting and all that, we have to diversify. We have to diversify and look at alternative ways that we can use our cinema assets, right? What can we do, right? Especially when we are closed, right? How do we get to our customers, and how do we make sure that they come back, right? So during the closure period, people can't come to the cinemas, so they have been streaming at home, right? Watching Netflix or whichever streaming platform. Yep. So we made sure we still deliver our GSC snacks, our popcorn, our popular popcorn direct to their home through GrabFood delivery, right? And so to make sure that we are still top of mind for the moviegoers when they come back to visit us, when we are allowed to open. And the other thing is, because the theatrical landscape has been changing so fast, it's fortunate that we started diversifying and looking at alternative streams of revenue instead of just the big screen. And with that in mind, we started our own F&B, Gin Gastro Bar at the Aurum Theatre, both in Gardens as well as in JB, right? And this allowed us to at least tap into the F&B market, and you don't have to go to the movies. You can come and enjoy fine food and drinks at Gin Gastro Bar. It's independent of the movies, of course, right? And with that, we are also starting our chain of F&B cafes in our mass market cinemas.
What kind of food do you serve? Is it fine dining or is it cinema snacks or what?
It's continental food, but we are now getting very popular with our cocktails. Our gin cocktails are very popular there. And the movie experience is very different now. People do not think that you would go to a cinema to have your food. They would normally dine outside, have their dinner before coming to see us. But now, with Gin Gastro Bar and the Aurum Theatre, people are actually coming and having their dining and their food before they enjoy their movie. So it's a whole total entertainment experience.
Okay. Can you share with me some of these new innovations they have done in their cinemas? I understand that there's quite a fair bit of it, I think, in JB and at the mall. Bigger cinemas, and that bigger screens, and then that even I read somewhere that I've not gone to try it out, so I'm asking you this question, okay? Where there's some, what they call it, can feel the sand, or they call it the roar of the lightning, that kind of thing. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. Some of the things that we brought, like I said, the cinematic experience has been evolving very rapidly, right? And now some of our key USPs that we have, which is only for GSC, is you mentioned about roaring and the wind and all that, is our 4DX experience. So the 4DX experience is like, it's a very immersive experience. It's like what you used to enjoy at the theme park. You go into, there's motion and there's environmental factors as well. So if you're watching a movie and it's raining, you will feel raindrops. If there's lightning, there's lightning. If there is smell, you can actually get to smell. So there's like 20 sensories when you're watching. So it's very immersive and you feel like you are in the movie instead of just watching a movie. The other USP that we have is ScreenX. I'm not sure if you've been to experience this. This is fantastic for when we had Bohemian Rhapsody because you have 3 screens instead of just 1 screen. So it's a 270-degree screens. So you feel like you are in the Wembley Stadium enjoying enjoying Queen's concert. So that's another one that is exclusively with GSC. We've also introduced, I think you're very familiar with IMAX as well. IMAX has been in the country for quite some time. We have that in JB, and we are going to introduce to more locations as well. I think the other thing is some of the new concepts that we've introduced over the last year and expanding, one of which is the Play Plus halls. Have you heard of the Play Plus halls?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have young children, so maybe not. Okay. Play Plus hall, you know, we found that we were losing a crowd family crowd where parents have young toddlers and kids, because you don't want to be going into a movie and then you have your kids, you're making a lot of noise and you feel so self-conscious. So what we did was we opened Play Plus halls where you're all in the same boat, all the parents with young toddlers. You have games to play in the hall, you have slides in the hall, and toddlers can watch a movie, or they can play. If they get distracted, you know, kids, they don't, their attention span is not very long, then they can start to play, and the parents can continue watching the movie on the big screen while their kids are playing, and they can have full view of their kids. So safety is not an issue, right?
Yes.
So that's one, the Play Plus. The other is, I alluded to it when I talked about Aurum Theatre. Aurum Theatre is our luxury cinema that we have at Gardens and Mid Valley in JB, right? We had this vision to bring in the kind of opulent cinemas that you have in Europe, where it encompasses not only movie watching, but it encompasses having your dining and drinks together at the cinemas. So we worked with Geta, and we have luxury recliners, right? We have comfort cabin, which is something like our Gold Class of before. And we introduced a very new hall concept where we have 3 different types of hall. You know, one is very European, kind of like European feel, Wes Anderson kind of feel when you go into the cinema. Another one is a very kinky pop art, and another one is like a Scandinavian. So it's like every time you go into a hall, it's a very different experience, right? And you have butler service. I call it butler service. Basically, you have service at your fingertips whilst you're watching the movie. You can actually call for service. You don't have to go out to buy your, you know, another box of popcorn or any orders, and you can actually have your food in the hall as well. So that's very exciting for us. Yeah, and in fact, and interesting to note is that when we had Mulan screening and Tenet, the Aurum Theatre admissions was 45% higher than the pre-COVID level admissions.
Okay.
So it goes to show that people, you know, during this time, they don't mind spending. I mean, you know, they've been locked down in the house for so long. They want to treat themselves. They want to spend. You know, they have a lot of disposable income. You know, they're not traveling. They're not doing a lot of things, right? So what do? They treat themselves to a nice movie with a luxury experience at Aurum.
Okay, Millie, I'm trying to find out more about this Aurum Theatre. So that so basically that this special effects experience, I can only feel it if I go to a specific hall, and that how much would I have to pay to have myself rained by the water and to have the smell and the scent and everything. How much do I have to pay to enjoy these special effects facilities?
Okay, if you're talking about Aurum, we don't have that special effect. So that one is a more luxe environment.
Okay.
What we have is the hall that you are referring to is 4DX.
Okay.
And this is available in the mass market. It's on our standard GSC cinemas, right?
How often are these shown? I mean, do you have to it's not like in every movie, right? Or only specific movies to enjoy?
Yeah, only with movies where you have the 4DX coding, right? And you only pay, I believe, 15 ringgit premium, right? So if your ticket is 20 ringgit, you pay another 15 ringgit, and for 2 hours, you can enjoy these effects.
Okay. All right. So let's just say the James Bond movie that's coming up next year. Would I be able to enjoy these special effects?
Oh yes. I think all the blockbuster movies from Hollywood now would be available on 4DX.
Okay. All right. Now, coming back to business, the business of cinemas, what will be your most single, what do you call it, the item that the operating expenses, what's the most expensive one, and what are your fixed costs besides rentals of space at the malls?
The other big expense would be our staff costs. Yeah, because we have 37 locations and more than 300 over screens. So we have about 2,000 staff before the MCO, and half of that is actually contract workers, which we have to furlough because the cinemas are closed. So we still have about 1,000 staff, right, at GSC. So staff cost is high. The other one would be, I think if you're talking about normal days, when the cinemas are open, half of our tickets actually go to the rental of the movie.
Yeah.
That's our highest ticket item, really.
But most of your staff would be part-timers, right? So you actually save quite a bit from having to pay many of the items that will go with ordinary full-time workers.
Yes, part-timers and contract workers. So 1,000 of them. Yes, so we've had to furlough them during our closure.
Okay. Now, cinema experiences, of course, have changed quite a bit, as you have mentioned. Can you tell me more about your 1,000-seat cinema at the Sunway Iskandar in Johor? This sounds interesting to have such a big cinema. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, so Sunway Iskandar, we are targeting probably by end of next year to open, and it's catering to a neighborhood of about 200,000 people. It will have 8 screens. Yeah, and because this location has a lot of young families, we wanted to do something that's very different. So we up the ante on our Play Plus concept. One of the halls will be Play Park, which means that we are going to dedicate a big space for indoor play area for the kids, where you can, if you watch the movie, you can have free access to this indoor park, right? Or if you don't want to watch the movie, the kids and even adults, I think we have enough equipment, can go in and play at this indoor park, right? And best of all would be that as parents, you know, when you have young kids, you have very little leisure time to yourself, and even for shopping and all that. So what we wanted to do was that at this indoor park, you can safely leave your kids at the indoor park, and then you go and have a coffee with your partner, or you can do your shopping. So that's another different concept that we will be introducing in Sunway Iskandar.
You know, maybe you spoke about content, okay? So for old folks like me who grew up in the 80s, okay? Now, if I decide to hold a party, okay, I say I want to watch Saturday Night Fever, okay, or Grease, okay, would you be able to source it for me? I hold a party at your place, and then that, although it's a 80s movie, you'll be able to source it and charge me, right? Can that be done?
Well, okay, yes, we would be able to sort it for you, but it might be an expensive affair because we need to get the DCPs from the distributors. And if the movies are too old, it's not easy to find. But if the movies are within maybe 1 or 2 years, I think then it should not be a problem. Then we will be able to source it for you and
for a party.
have a party. Yes, definitely. Yeah, and since you talk about party, I forgot to mention that Aurum Theatre, we have a private hall, right? Which you can watch. I think it can fit about very cozily 20 people, 20 of your closest friends.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can have your party there. And it has a private bar in the private hall. And we have karaoke facilities as well, so if you feel like you want to watch a movie, you can, but if you feel you want to sing your heart out, you can do that as well. So that would be the best place for you to celebrate your birthday if you want to.
Okay, now, if I want to bring in my bottles of Yamazaki, will you charge me corkage?
For you, how can I charge you corkage?
but for everybody else, it's
okay. Generally, what you do is that if you normally, I think we will charge minimal corkage.
Okay.
Minimal corkage. But if you buy a bottle from us, then the rental of the next 3 hours of the hall is actually free. So you just need to buy a bottle.
Okay. Now, okay, what is the best time and the best day to actually go to the movies where you have actually a good discount?
Actually, to me, every day is a good day to go to a movie. But if you're talking about value, then it has to be on a Wednesday because that's a movie day and the ticket prices are discounted by 40%.
Okay.
But nowadays, right, like GSC, we have a lot of specials like early bird specials, late night specials, happy hour specials. So you just have to go into our website to find what kind of promotions that we are having.
Okay, they're talking about the excitement of going to the cinemas. Now I want to talk about the excitement, okay, of having to deal with your administrator, okay. Now I'm wearing this, okay, because that for some reason that it has become the talk of the town in the social media realm, and that everybody talks about how witty this person is. Is it a she or a he? But the person is very funny. Tell us more about how this has become a social media talk and why I'm wearing this.
So my lips are sealed. I can't tell you whether GSC admin is a he or a she. That's the best kept secret in town. But I can share with you about hello cannot. Actually, this phrase started when we wanted to open the cinemas, right? Because of the SOP, you have to sit apart, right? And there were many questions asked about, but we are from the same family, it's my wife or my husband, and we are going to the cinema together. Can we sit together at the cinema? And so many questions around the sitting apart that our GSC admin said, hello cannot, right? Because there were so many questions about this. And somehow, hello cannot is a very Malaysian colloquial phrase, right? It's a very, and it resonated with a lot of Malaysians, right? And it became so popular, everybody was using hello cannot. And we saw through this an opportunity to do some merchandising on it, right? So I guess you could say that, even when there's a crisis, there's always a silver lining, and this was one of it, which is we've always wanted to start a e-merchandise or e-commerce platform. for a couple of years now. And it actually took this crisis to say, hey, come on, I think we can sell some merchandise on our, so we started our own platform with Hello Cannot merchandise, masks and t-shirts, and now it's called Keepsake. So we've started our own platform, and you can go into GSC's Keepsake, and we sell other movie-related collectibles as well.
Were you caught by surprise by this thing which went viral?
Oh, yes, we were happily surprised. And I think it goes to show that consumers and moviegoers, they can relate to GSC brand, which is very up to date with current affairs, very funky and humorous. And I think our GSC admin did a very good job.
Yeah, man. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, in terms of data, in terms of your audience age group, what makes up the largest group of audience, your customers?
80% of our customers, actually, we are very young. About 80% of our customers are within the age group of 18 to 35.
Okay. And that, what do you call it, in terms of their choice of movies, in terms of content, obviously that when you have your movies, it's like a buffet. It's like a kind of a big spread. Okay, what kind of movies do Malaysian audience prefer? Okay, when you look for action pack, tearjerkers, comedy, what would be their preference? The number one.
The number one would be superheroes.
Okay.
All of Marvel's blockbusters, they love superheroes. They love action movies. They love movies that you do not really have to think very much. You can leave your brains behind and you walk into a cinema and you just want to enjoy yourself. They love horror in that order, and comedy as well. Not so much of thinking movies. So like movies like Tenet, where you have to watch 2 to 3 times before you can understand the story. That is not very commercial for Malaysians.
So basically, I can say that Oscar award movies, okay, although they are highly acclaimed and they won Oscars, but most likely they will not be popular box office kind of movies. Am I right?
You are very right. That is true. So and the thing is like Parasite, right? Just for example, like Parasite, they won the Academy Award for the best, I think it's the number, they won for the best foreign film award.
Yeah.
Right? And when we screened it the first time, admissions was very low, right? But after they won it, then admissions actually doubled, because you have the awareness and people wanted to find out, and how did the first Asian movie get to win this Academy Award, right? But generally, it's still very low, right? It's still in between 1 to 2 million compared to a blockbuster that you would have, 30, 40 million box office.
Quite surprising. I thought that the Parasite did not require much thinking. All you wanted to know was to find out how did the old man died. Okay.
Yeah, but it's a very slow. A lot of these award-winning movies are not fast-paced. They are very slow, and it takes time to build the plot and all that. So, no.
What about La La Land?
You just want action from the start to the end.
Bang, 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 right? Finish it.
Yes.
How did La La Land perform in Malaysia?
Same, yeah. Doesn't matter that I've watched that movie 3 times, but I loved it very, very much.
Yep.
I have La La Land somewhere behind. I think it's one of my favorite movies. You can see it. That's one of my favorite movies ever.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would call it Oscar movie box office returns.
I think with La La Land, the songs were good, but I guess that because it was a tearjerker in a way, most of us left the cinema feeling very sad because we really wanted the couple to stay together. but fate has it that they couldn't be together. I felt very sad looking at that movie, and you'd be surprised that even for me, I actually cried. Okay, so
Wow.
nobody wants to pay money to go to the cinemas and cry. Okay, they want to be entertained and to have a good time. Now, what about the Greatest Showman? How did it went?
Oh, yeah. Greatest Showman actually did very well in the cinemas. And I think, Greatest Showman, even though they're all original songs, but even when you watch it for the first time, it's very catchy and you can sing along to it very easily. I think that's one of the reasons why it became so popular. And in fact, they came up with a sing-along version with The Greatest Showman as well. So that was one of the best performing musicals that we had.
Okay, you know that I'm a big fan of Bollywood movies. I watch a lot of Hindi movies. I watch a lot of Tamil movies. Okay, from Kabali to whatever you call it. Okay, and that I have only get to watch this on Netflix. Okay, but I prefer the big screen because Bollywood movies have changed so much. They have improved so much. I tell people, look, Hindi movies they don't run around in coconut trees anymore. You're talking about the 50s or the 40s. Now they're very sophisticated. The plots are very good. If I want to watch great Bollywood movies, where do I go?
Yeah, you got me stumped there. We don't play a lot of Bollywood movies. I'm afraid. I think it's because I think it's a matter of demand and supply.
Distribution issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I think the demand. The Malaysians. I think the number one is still Hollywood blockbusters.
Okay.
Hollywood blockbusters account for 70 to 80% of our box office.
Okay.
So we're very dependent. And then hopefully, I think, looking forward to more Malaysian titles, which has actually been doing very well. In 2019, we had 3 animations, and these 3 animations actually became the top 10 movies of the year, comparable to the Hollywood blockbusters. So we have a lot of talent in our local industry. Hopefully, when we nurture that, and who knows, we might even be able to win an award at the Oscars like the Korean movie Parasite.
I think our Malay movies are doing very well. I like the
Yes.
Evo series are very good, high quality.
Yes.
And of course, I love the Pontianak series as well. And I hope that 2021 we'll find a vaccine soon. I need to get back to the cinemas. Okay, I need to watch movies in the cinemas and also up in the sky, where you know that when you talk about movies, you need to be trapped. You need to be confined. You can't go anywhere. You are stuck there watching this movie, totally immersed, totally absorbed in it. And that I hope things will change. And one final question before we leave this tonight, Mei, what is your wish for 2021 besides that they will find a vaccine soon and that we can go back to the cinemas? What do you hope would happen in 2021?
My greatest wish for 2021 is for us to return to normality, where every quarter we have blockbuster movies and we see audiences rushing to the cinemas, buying their soda, popcorn, and enjoying the best entertainment at GSC. That would be my wish.
I think that will happen. That will be spoiled for choice. There are so many content, so many titles that we will go to your GSC every night.
I hope so too.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mei Lee, for spending time with us, talking about movies, talking about your interests, talking about your wish, as well as the cinema industry as a whole. Finally, to all my followers, please remember to like, follow, and share RealChunWai. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Chunwai. Good night.